BMW can make some pretty amazing cars, and probably the greatest one is the M5. Because as a brand that doesn't build any supercars at all, it is very impressive that the M5s managed to beat the heck out of supercars. So let's start with talking about the first generation. Their codename is E28, and they were built from 1984 to 1988, and they were the fastest production sedan in the world. They featured the engine out of the M1, called the M88, and it is a 3.5 liter inline-six, producing 282 horsepower at 6500 RPM. This engine though was only available in Europe and South Africa. Sorry America, in North America you could only get the detuned version of that engine. It's called the S38 and has 256 horsepower and is the successor to the M88. I don't even know why it has less power. All the cars got a 5-speed manual and use the front engine rear-wheel drive configuration. At about 1400 kilos, they are pretty damn light, so that's like 3100 pounds, and have very bad news if you want one. They are the 4th rarest production BMW ever made. With just 2,241 units that were mostly hand-built in Germany, they are very expensive. I only found one in the US for 140k, and the ones you find in Europe are about 50 to 100k. Depending on the condition. And by the way, €1 is $1.1 at the time I'm recording this. But let's get on with the second generation, the E34. Built from 1988 to 1995, they are the last hand-built M car, and there are a total of 12,254, of which 891 are wagons. They again are front engine and rear-wheel drive and use the S38 I mentioned before. It's the same 3.5 liter inline-six, but this time making 311 horsepower, which leads to a 0 to 100 or 0 to 62 time of 6.3 seconds. And because of emission reasons, South Africa and North America only got this one option again. But since 1991, BMW added a 3.8 liter version that was capable of 335 horsepower, 0 to 100 times of 5.9 seconds, and only available in Europe. They also had some other tweaks, like an upgraded ignition system, a dual mass flywheel and electric dampers. But the top speed was limited to 250 km an hour or 160 miles per hour, so the engine option doesn't make any difference here. And with the transmissions, there was a 5-speed manual from 88 to 94 and a 6-speed manual from 94 to 95. The cars also weighed about 1750 kilos, which is like 3850 pounds, so much heavier than the previous generation. The wagon was available since 1992 and prices in Europe range from 25 to 70k and in America from about 30 to 80k. The next model was the E39 and it was built from 1998 to 2003, and it is the first V8 M5. Using the 4.9 liter S62, they pulled out 394 horsepower at 6600 RPM. They still came with a 6-speed manual transmission and used the same front engine rear-wheel drive combination as the other two, but they added a limited slip differential. The car reached 0 to 100 or 0 to 62 times of 4.8 seconds and had a top speed again limited to 250 km an hour or 155 miles per hour. If you remove the limiter, the car can go over 300 km an hour, so about 186 miles per hour, which was tested on the Nürburgring, where this car achieved a lap time record of 8 minutes and 20 seconds. A total of 20,482 cars were produced at 1800 kilos each, so about 3900 pounds, but they made no M5 wagon this time. They also had cool tech stuff like aluminum front suspension components and a multi-link rear suspension. With the facelift that came in 2001, they added new headlights, the so-called angel eyes, and LED taillights, as well as upgrading the interior. And if you want to buy one of these cars, expect about 20 to 100k in the US or 30 to 70k in Europe. And now to the wildest generation, the E60 or E61. Built from 2004 to 2010, they were the world's first production sedan using a V10, which was also based on a 1-take. It's called the S85 and is a 5 liter V10 with 500 horsepower at 7750 RPM. You get a 7-speed sequential gearbox, so you get pedal shifters, and an optional 6-speed manual, but only in America. Like all the other ones so far, it's front engine rear-wheel drive and officially does a 0 to 100 or 0 to 62 time of 4.7 seconds, but in some press tests it achieved 4.1 seconds. So it was the fastest 4-door sedan at the time of its introduction. But yet again, the top speed limited to 250 or 155, but with the M driver's package, you could raise that to 305 km an hour, so 190 miles per hour. So it managed to get a Nürburgring record of 8 minutes and 13 seconds. A total of 20,598 units were built, of which 1,025 were tourings. The USA and UK were the biggest markets for this car, but the E61, so the touring version, was only for the European market. At very roughly 1900 kilos, or about 4200 pounds, plus minus 50 or something, they also got way heavier again. And with this generation, they got a bunch of upgrades over the normal 5 Series. They were wider of course, then they had a heads-up display, heated and ventilated seats, and access to lots of vehicle data. But they are famous for their reliability, because it's horrible. Road bearing failure is very common on these engines, which basically means catastrophic engine failure. Also the throttle actuators had some problems, once because of the gears inside of them and their electrics. But this engine sound might be worth it. Just kidding, it probably isn't, even though it's insane. But you can still pick these cars up for about 15 to 40k in the US and 20 to 50 in Europe. And now the 5th gen. BMW built the F10 from 2011 to 2016 and it was the first M5 using turbochargers. It still was a front engine, rear-wheel drive car with a 4.4 liter twin-turbo V8 in the front called the S63 that produced 553 horsepower at up to 7,000 RPM. They then had a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, which was also new to the M5, and a 6-speed manual as a US-only option. They then weighed about 1950 kilos, so roughly 4300 pounds. They still managed to get 4.4 seconds 0 to 100 or 0 to 62 time and had their top speed limited to 250 or 155. But with this generation, you could also get the M drivers package, in Europe only, that increased the speed to 305 or 190. This way, it achieved a 7 minute and 55 second lap time on the Nürburgring. BMW also offered things like an M differential, which allowed for torque vectoring, then optional carbon ceramic brakes, or M performance parts, which are basically a bunch of carbon fiber. There also was the M5 competition package, which was introduced in 2014. It increased the power output to 567 horsepower and also added a different suspension setup. But in 2015, they upgraded the power output with that package to 591 horsepower. And generally saying, because the gearbox is so good, you get better fuel economies than in previous M5s. A total of 19,533 units were built, but there are no touring versions. And if you want to get one in the US, expect prices between 25 and 60k, and in Europe ranging from 30 to 50k. Now to the sort of last generation, the F90. Built from 2017 to 2023, it was the first all-wheel drive M5, but it still was front engine. It again had a 4.4 liter twin-turbo V8 called the S63 that put out 591 horsepower. They then used the 8-speed automatic with a torque converter, which they say they chose for reliability reasons. But don't worry, you can still send all of the power to the rear wheels only, so you can still enjoy that engine. And even with all the all-wheel drive stuff, they weighed about 1980 kilos or roughly 4400 pounds. And they managed to get a 3.4 second 0 to 100 time, or 0 to 62. Top speed was yet again limited to 250 or 155, and with the optional M drivers package, you could extend it to 305 or 190. And this generation achieved a Nürburgring lap time of 7 minutes and 38 seconds. There also was an M5 competition introduced in 2018. It now had 617 horsepower at 6000 RPM and with 3.1 seconds, a better 0 to 100 or 62 time. It also has stiffer suspension, sits lower, has a new exhaust and a few little more tweaks, as well as a Nürburgring time of 7 minutes and 35 seconds. Apart from that, the F90 was facelifted in 2020, which added a track mode, new front and rear lights, new sharper bumper designs, suspension upgrades and an update in the infotainment system. And based on the facelift, the M5 CS was introduced in 2021. It was the first ever CS M5 and had 626 horsepower and was 110 kilos or 250 pounds lighter than the normal M5, mainly with the use of a lot of carbon. It also had 4 bucket seats, a lot of golden bronze trim, as well as hood vents. And it's just a little bit faster again. So if you want to pick up an F90, they are about 60 to 160k, both in Europe and the US. And just by the way, the new 5 Series comes out very soon, so there will be a new M5. And it will keep the 4.4 liter twin-turbo V8, but it will be a hybrid. But because it's using the e-motor out of the BMW XM, it could be pretty awesome. But let's leave the performance out the way, because the M5 is still based on the normal 5 Series that competes with cars like the Mercedes E-Class. It gives all of the luxurious comforts and features, unless you buy the M5 CS because of the bucket seats, though they're not bad. And being just under 5 meters long, so over 16 feet. They offer all the space for luggage and passengers you need. They're also built with very high quality, which also goes for the materials, so lots of aluminum and carbon fiber, and on the interiors, a bunch of leather or Alcantara if you spec it that way, and some nice metals. And there's not much plastic in there. So in conclusion, the M5 can make up for a pretty nice daily driver. They are mostly reliable if not mistreated too much, because it's not that hard to take care of a car most of the time. And I'd advise you to not buy an E60 M5, or at least not as a daily. So comment down below what you think about the M5. Do you like it or not? Let me know. And on that note, I hope you liked the video and enjoy the rest of your day. So maybe I see you this video right here. Until next time.